has a fish consumption advisory that says women and young children should not be eating fish caught in those streams. How many poor people who rely on fish as food know this? None of them, probably. Because the most dangerous exposure time to mercury is when a child is in the womb. There's a special concern because their brain is developing. Those young, it's one thing I learned at Improving Kids' Environment, you know, that when our brains are developing, exposure to mercury can really interrupt those key development times and can lead to things like lower IQ, ADD, problems learning in school, you know, brain damage, and those kinds of things. So we find that, again, this is just one stream, White River from Hamilton County to Broad Ripple. If you look at Broad Ripple to the county line, you'll see another kind of list of fish. And these are, the fish consumption advisories come out for the general population and the sensitive groups. Well, sensitive groups is a lot of people. It's all children 15 and under, all women of childbearing age. So women, you know, younger than me, but you know, 40 and younger. If a woman might be having a child in the future, she should watch her consumption because mercury builds up in our systems and doesn't easily come out. So you look at, these are larger fish, mercury builds up in the food chain. So when the larger fish are eating the medium-sized fish that eat the smaller fish, the mercury is kind of building up in the food chain and making all of these unsafe for women and young children to eat. Like I said, just about any stream in Indiana has these kinds of advisories because of all the coal that we burn and that's burned around the world. What happens to, after you burn the coal, you have coal ash that's left over, and that coal ash is mixed with water and sent through pipes into these coal ash ponds that, here's the plant and Harding Street, and these ponds are right along the White River. The White River goes right along here. These are basically holes dug in the ground. There's no lining under them to protect our groundwater. There's no cover on top of them, and the water and coal ash is piped out to these ponds where the ash will settle. The water will either evaporate or sink down into the groundwater down there. And we have concerns, just about every coal ash pond has caused groundwater contamination where it's monitored. There's no current monitoring of the groundwater there, but we're going to be talking about that in the coming weeks and be happy to come and talk again about that issue. As I said, IPL is developing their 20-year energy plan for our community. Their last plan that they did in 2011, looking ahead, they said to 2021, we're planning to generate, to our capacity to generate would be 57% coal, 28% natural gas, 2% oil, so they like to burn things to generate electricity, and then 13% energy efficiency and demand response. Demand response, an example of that would be if you have those cool sense boxes on your air conditioner where they can shut that off in a real peak, that would be a demand response. Energy efficiency programs are the Energizing Indiana program, which IPL and its other utilities killed at the legislature this year. 13% looks pretty good, but they're actually were required under Energizing Indiana to achieve 12% by 2021. So 13% isn't much to brag about. It's what they were required to do until they killed it. And so we're trying to fight to get that back, working with the governor's office and the legislature and allies this next year.
Where do they calculate? Because I know out Franklin Township where I'm at, they're putting in a large solar farm. Where does that fit into their chart of production?
The solar farm was not, they last did that plan in 2011, and they weren't counting the solar farm in that. The solar farm will be about 1% of their generating capacity. And they also talk about wind. They buy wind from some wind farms here and in Minnesota, but then they resell that wind to other states. And so they can't count it in their generating capacity because they resell the wind component of that electricity. So and I'll talk about what some other utilities are doing. So that, this plan that they're working on now is important because it then leads to their petitioning the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission for rate increases to do what they plan to do. The plan itself is non-binding, but it leads to their next step. So 2011, they said, here's what we're going to do. In December, they came out with asked for a $615 million rate increase for coal pollution controls in December of 2011. That was approved by the Utility Regulatory Commission. In August of 2013, actually in 2012, they asked for a $510 million rate increase for coal pollution controls on the Harding Street plant, and they also have a large electric station in Petersburg. There's 4 big units down there that burn coal, so they were approved another $510 million of our money to burn coal at Harding Street and in Petersburg. And then pending is another rate increase. They've asked for $667 million to convert those 2 small units at Harding Street to natural gas and to build a new natural gas plant in Martinsville that's twice the size of the coal plant they're replacing there. So we have questions about the need for building more than they really are replacing when energy demand is expected to be flat. And are they building that with our money to just sell the electricity at their shareholders' profits? These are some ministers who did a prayer walk last year and who wrote a letter saying that the IURC made a wrong decision. We have the faith community involved. But this is really what's happening. This is what I found this presentation online. IPL's general counsel in 2011 went to a national conference and he gave this talk about innovation, and he said, here's our philosophy. Go early, go small. They were the first utility to offer this green power option where you can sign up for green power on your bill. Early wind power purchase agreement, that's the wind power that I told you that they purchase but sell elsewhere. Until recently, they were the only utility to offer a feed-in tariff. That's the solar projects that you were talking about, like at the airport and on the south side and other places around town. So that's good. 100 megawatts of solar is nothing to sneeze about. That's good, but it's 1% of their capacity. Why are they doing this? We want to be viewed by regulator and customer as innovative. They want us to see them as innovative, but in reality, it's, last year or 2012, the last numbers I saw, they generated most of their 99% of their electricity from coal. So they'll talk about cost and how they want to balance things when, in reality, we showed last year that it would cost more money to keep Harding Street going and burning coal than it would to retire it and shift to natural gas, for example, or some of these other examples. So they want to appear innovative, but in reality, they're locking us into the past. We know we are for clean energy. I've been up here bashing IPL and complaining, but there's great stories out there of states that these darker states, Iowa at 25% wind energy. These states are moving ahead to the future of clean energy, and we can't retire all of our coal overnight and switch to clean. But we could be incorporating a lot more of clean energy into our power and reducing those health problems on our community. Iowa's Mid-American Energy is expected to be 39% wind power just in a few years, and we will be 3 or 4% if you count the wind power that they buy and then resell. There is some good news. As I said, the 100 megawatts of solar that IPL is doing is a big reason why Indiana added almost 1,000 solar jobs since 2012. But if you compare that to Mid-American Energy in Iowa, they're building one of the biggest solar farms, 579 megawatt solar. It's small in comparison to what they're doing. And we're also seeing utilities like IPL and Duke who are trying to who are not that happy that customers are putting up solar, and they're thinking about how can we hold that back. We're seeing utilities across the country who are wanting to make it less incentives and less profitable for us to put our own solar, because that's the wave of the future. Just like cell phones replace landlines, us generating our own power is where we're going to be by 2030, 2035. Meanwhile, we're putting money into a centrally generated coal-fired power plant that is going to have to be retired at some point, and then we've put a bunch of money into it, and that's lost money on our part as ratepayers. We had a rally last Saturday. 200 people showed up. This rally was not a Sierra Club rally per se. It was neighborhoods, churches, student groups who have all joined the campaign to Power Indy Forward. All the speakers were from those organizations. So some examples, NESCO has signed a resolution to power Indy forward, and I have a copy of an example resolution. I know many of you are neighborhood leaders, would love to come out to your neighborhood group and talk about this issue and see if you would want to sign on to this this type of resolution. There's a press release on the back also about, with a list of the 43 different groups that have passed a resolution to power Indy forward. There's many neighborhood groups, church groups, and student groups, as I said. So you can see that press release and who spoke. And there's a general fact sheet back there as well about the Harding Street plant. One Voice in Martindale-Brightwood, my friends in Martindale-Brightwood that I worked with for many years have joined the campaign. And Annette Johnson from Pike Township was our MC that day. Other neighborhoods that were represented are listed here: Fayette Street, Property Owners Association, some of the neighbors of Irvington Terrace, Mid-North. So a lot of different community groups that have started to learn about this campaign and said, hey, IPL, this is what we want from our 20-year plan. Margaret Lawrence Banning is from Irvington Development Corporation, Executive Director, and she also spoke at our rally. Would love to work with any of you on this concept of passing a resolution to power Indy forward and to advocate for the energy plan we want. We've also been talking to our city county councilors about this. A number of them are interested in this issue, and the IPL's plan has to be submitted by November 1st of this year. So we'll be working, and they have to do a public process with that. So there's a group of us that are going to be attending those meetings with IPL, but there's other groups who are just going to try to engage in more public ways and try to get the kind of energy plan that we want that actually protects our health. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
One of the things that I've heard, please understand I'm not advocating this position, but one of the things that I have heard in opposition to this is we're going to lose so many jobs if we step away from coal-fired plants. What information would you offer that would refute that argument? Thanks.
Yeah, that is a common question, and I do have a sheet I'm going to pass around for anyone who's interested in getting involved or either passing a resolution, meeting with your counselor. So I meant to pass that around earlier. The jobs question is one that, as I showed, there are a lot of jobs that can be generated in solar and wind. We need electricity, so there's a lot of need for jobs to generate electricity, to maintain systems that do that. The question is, do we want jobs that are really unhealthy for workers and for the coal miners and for the neighbors of coal mines and power plants? Or do we want to move into a direction where we're investing in, we could be manufacturing wind components. There are some companies in Indiana that do that. We could be, turning some of our vacant factories into places that generate wind energy, and teaching people how to install solar on roofs, and building small businesses who can do that in our neighborhoods, and getting solar on low-income homes through programs. There's a lot of opportunities for jobs in the clean tech industry, and that's actually a very fast growing. There are more people in the country now employed by clean energy than by coal, and that's the future. So do we want to hang on to the past in Indiana or move to the future is, I think, the question that we need to address. I have met